The FBI agent's blood was already freezing to the ice when Maya Reeves found him 200 feet below the cliff edge, one hand clutching classified documents, the other pressed against a bullet wound in his side. His lips were blue, but his eyes were sharp when he grabbed her wrist and pulled her close enough to whisper 6 words that would shatter everything she thought she knew about justice. "They're inside the bureau. They killed Rachel." Then his grip went slack, and his breathing turned shallow, and Maya understood with terrible clarity that whoever shot this man and threw him off a mountain wasn't finished. That the boot prints she'd seen in the snow above were fresh, and that her German Shepherd Titan was the only thing standing between a dying federal agent and the people who wanted him erased. Before we go further, tell us where you're watching from in the comments below. We love seeing how far these stories travel. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss what happens next, because this story goes places you won't expect. Stay with us all the way to the end, and let's walk this journey together. Maya's hands moved before her mind fully caught up, muscle memory from SEAL training overriding the 1,000 questions trying to crowd into her skull. She pressed 2 fingers against Connor Walsh's neck. The name was right there on his FBI credentials, hanging half-torn from his tactical vest, and felt a pulse that was too slow, too weak, like his body was already negotiating terms with the cold. "Stay with me," she said, not loud, just firm enough that it counted as an order. "You don't get to die before you tell me who Rachel is." Connor's eyelids fluttered. His lips tried to shape words, but only breath came out. White vapor that disappeared into the wind, screaming across the Sierra Nevada peaks. Maya looked up at the cliff face she'd have to climb to get him out and felt her stomach drop. 200 feet of ice-slicked granite, unstable snow cornices at the top, and her rope bag only carried 300 feet of line. It would be close. Too close. Titan pressed against her leg, the German Shepherd's tan and black coat already dusted with snow. His brown eyes locked on the injured man with the kind of focus that meant he understood this wasn't training anymore. Maya touched his head once, a brief contact that steadied them both. "Good boy," she whispered. "We're going to need perfect today." She stripped off her pack and pulled out the climbing rope, webbing, carabiners, her hands moving fast but not frantic, because frantic got people killed in the mountains. Connor's breathing had gone raspy, each inhale sounding like it hurt. When Maya unzipped his jacket to check the bullet wound, she found exactly what she'd feared. Entry wound in his lower right side, no exit wound, which meant the round was still inside him, doing damage she couldn't see. "Connor," she said, close to his ear. "Connor Walsh, can you hear me?" His eyes opened, just a crack. Recognition flickered there, or maybe just animal awareness that someone was talking. "I'm Maya Reeves, former Navy SEAL. I'm getting you out of here, but I need you conscious. You understand?" The smallest nod. His hand moved, fumbling at the waterproof case strapped across his chest. Maya caught his wrist. "Later," she said. "Right now, you focus on breathing." "No." The word came out broken, but absolute. Connor's fingers clawed at the case clasp. "They can't have it." Maya met his eyes and saw something that made her chest tighten. Not pain, not fear, but the terrible clarity of a man who knew he was dying and needed to pass something on before he went. She'd seen that look before, on a SEAL teammate bleeding out in Kandahar, using his last seconds to whisper grid coordinates for an airstrike that saved their whole platoon. She opened the case. Inside were documents, printed emails, financial records, photographs of evidence locker inventories with handwritten notes in the margins, USB drives labeled with dates and case numbers. And tucked on top, a small digital recorder still running, red light blinking, steady as a heartbeat. "Evidence Management Division," Connor rasped. They're selling it. Selling everything. Drugs, guns, cash, seized assets going back to the cartels. He coughed, and blood flecked his lips. Rachel found the pattern. They killed her. Made it look like a car accident. Maya's hands had gone still. Who's they? Deputy Director Elizabeth Vance. Connor's voice was fading, but his grip on her arm tightened with desperate strength. 20 agents, maybe more. Inside the Bureau. Inside Evidence Management. They pushed me off that cliff an hour ago. Thought I was dead. But I crawled to the ledge, and I held on, because Rachel... His voice cracked. Because Rachel died thinking nobody would believe her. Maya looked at the documents, then up at the cliff edge, where those boot prints had been. Fresh prints. Which meant whoever pushed Connor off was still up there, probably circling back to confirm the kill. How long before they come looking? She asked. Already are. Connor's eyes tracked past her, toward the tree line above. Saw headlights on the access road. 20 minutes ago. Maybe less. Maya's mind shifted into combat mode, calculating angles and time and risk the way she'd learned in Coronado. She had maybe 30 minutes before armed men reached this position. 30 minutes to rig a rope system, anchor it to something that would hold a 200-pound man, climb down, secure Connor in a harness, and haul him up 200 feet of vertical ice while he bled internally and hypothermia tried to shut his body down. 30 minutes to do something that should take 90. Tighten, guard, she said, and the shepherd immediately moved to face upslope, ears forward, body tense. If anyone approached, he'd alert. It wasn't much, but it was all the early warning system she had. Maya moved fast. She looped rope through a figure-8 descender, tied off to a massive boulder 20 feet back from the edge, tested the anchor with her full body weight until she was sure it would hold. Then she clipped in and back toward the cliff face, rope hissing through the hardware as she descended. The ice was worse than it looked. Her boots slipped twice in the first 30 feet, and both times her heart tried to climb out through her throat. She forced herself to slow down, to breathe, to remember that speed without control just meant falling faster. Connor needed her alive and functional, not splattered across the rocks below because she'd rushed. At 100 feet, she glanced up and saw Titan's silhouette against the sky, still watching, still waiting. That dog had been with her through 3 deployments and 2 years of civilian life that felt harder than combat some days. He'd never failed her. She wouldn't fail him now. At 150, her rope ran through a patch of rotten ice, and the whole shelf creaked like it was thinking about letting go. Maya froze, barely breathing, until the sound stopped. Then she kept moving, because stopping meant dying just as sure as rushing did. When she reached Connor's ledge, the sun had dropped another degree toward the horizon, and the temperature was plummeting with it. Connor's skin had gone waxy, his breathing so shallow she had to watch his chest to confirm it was happening at all. "Still with me?" she asked, already pulling the rescue harness from her belt. Connor's eyes opened. "Thought you left." "Not how I'm built." Maya threaded the harness under his shoulders, trying to be gentle, but knowing gentle didn't matter when you were manhandling a gut-shot man. Connor bit back a sound that was half gasp, half scream. "I know," Maya said. "I know it hurts. But I need you to help me. When I lift, you push with your legs. Can you do that?" "Can't feel my legs." "Then you let me do the work. Just don't pass out." She clipped him to the rope, checked every connection twice because there were no second chances at this altitude, then keyed the small radio on her shoulder. "Tighten, pull." Up above, the German shepherd grabbed the pull cord in his teeth, a cord Maya had rigged to a simple mechanical advantage system before she descended, and started backing up. The rope went taut. Connor rose 6 inches off the ledge, then a foot, his weight supported by hardware and dog power, and physics that Maya had learned to trust even when her instincts screamed it shouldn't work. She climbed beside him, one hand steadying his harness, the other working her ascenders up the rope in a rhythm she could have done asleep. Up 10 feet. 20. Connor's head lolled, and Maya slapped his cheek harder than she meant to. "Stay awake," she snapped. "You die on me, and Rachel died for nothing. You hear me? For nothing." His eyes focused, just barely. "You didn't know her. Doesn't matter. She was trying to do right, and they killed her for it. That makes her mine to honor, same as yours." 50 feet. 75. Maya's shoulders were burning, and her breath came hard in the thin air, but she didn't slow. Connor mumbled something about encrypted files and Dead Man's Switch and automatic uploads, but she couldn't parse it over the wind, and her own heartbeat pounding in her skull. At 100 feet, she heard Titan bark. Not the alert bark, the warning bark. The one that meant threat inbound, close, moving fast. Maya looked up and saw shapes at the cliff edge. 3 of them. Men in tactical gear, with rifles slung across their chests, peering down into the shadows where she was hauling a dying FBI agent up from his grave. "There!" one of them shouted. "He's still alive!" The lead man unslung his rifle. Maya's world telescoped down to a single bright point of terrible clarity. They were going to shoot Connor while he dangled helpless on the rope. And there wasn't a damn thing she could do to stop them, because both her hands were occupied, keeping him from falling. Then Titan hit the first man like 70 pounds of fur-wrapped fury. The German Shepherd's teeth found the rifle strap and yanked hard, pulling the weapon down just as the man squeezed the trigger. The shot went wild, sparking off granite 15 feet to Maya's left. The man screamed and tried to shake Titan off, but the dog had locked on with the kind of determination that made him the best combat canine Maya had ever worked with. The second man swung his rifle toward Titan. "Don't you touch my dog!" Maya roared, and in that moment, she made a choice that would have gotten her court-martialed in the service. She let go of Connor's harness, drew the Sig Sauer P320 from her belt holster, and fired 3 rounds at the second man's center mass. 2 hit his ballistic vest and knocked him backward. The third caught him in the thigh, and he went down hard, screaming. Connor swung on the rope, completely unsecured, his harness the only thing keeping him from a 200-foot plunge. Maya grabbed him with her left hand, holstered the Sig with her right, and started climbing again, while her heart tried to hammer its way through her ribcage. "Titan, break!" she shouted. The shepherd released the first man's rifle and bounded back from the edge just as the third man opened fire. Rounds punched into the snow where Titan had been standing half a second earlier. Maya couldn't return fire, couldn't do anything but climb and pray and count the seconds until she reached the top. 20 feet. 15. Connor's eyes had closed, and his skin had gone gray. But his chest still moved, so she kept hauling him upward with strength she didn't know she had. 10 feet. The third man appeared at the edge, rifle aimed straight down at her face. "Let him go," the man said. His voice was flat, professional, the tone of someone who'd done this before. "Let him go, and we'll let you walk away." Maya's arms were shaking with fatigue, but she didn't stop climbing. "You're FBI," she said, reading the tactical vest markings, even though she knew what they meant. "You're supposed to be the good guys." "We are the good guys." The man's finger moved to the trigger. "Walsh is a traitor. He stole classified materials. You help him, you're aiding a federal fugitive. He's got a bullet in his gut, and you threw him off a cliff." Maya's voice came out hard as stone. "That what the good guys do now?" For just a second, maybe 2, something flickered across the man's face. Not doubt, exactly. more like the recognition that he'd crossed a line somewhere back in the dark, and now he was standing on the wrong side of it with no clear path back. Then his training took over, and his eyes went cold again. "Last chance," he said. Maya's hand found the top of the cliff. She planted her boot against solid rock and heaved Connor up the final few feet. Muscle and will, and the absolute refusal to let this man die after everything he'd survived. The rifle muzzle tracked her movement. Titan exploded from cover and hit the third man full in the chest. 70 pounds of trained aggression moving at full combat speed. They went down together in a snarling tangle of dog and human and violence. The rifle fired once, straight up, harmless. Then Titan's jaws found the man's weapon arm and clamped down with enough force to make bone creak. Maya dragged Connor over the edge and rolled him onto flat ground, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The first man, the one Titan had disarmed, was trying to crawl toward his rifle, with blood streaming from where the dog had torn into his arm. The second man was still down, clutching his thigh and screaming about arterial bleeding. The third man was pinned under Titan's weight, his face white with pain or fear or both. "Titan, hold!" Maya commanded, and the shepherd froze in place, jaws still locked on the man's arm, but no longer applying pressure. She grabbed the first man's rifle and slung it over her shoulder, then moved to Connor and checked his pulse. Still there. Barely. His lips were moving. Maya leaned close. "Dead man's switch," Connor whispered. 12 hours. If I don't, check in. Files upload. Everything. Media. Justice Department. All of it. When's the next check-in? 5 hours. His hand fumbled for hers and gripped with surprising strength. Don't let Vance bury this. Rachel deserves... He coughed, wet and painful. She deserves the truth. Maya looked at the 3 men on the ground, federal agents who just tried to murder one of their own, and would have killed her too if given half a chance, and felt something cold and purposeful settle into her chest. This wasn't a training exercise anymore. This wasn't even a rescue operation. This was war. The kind fought in shadows and sealed files, where the enemy wore badges, and the only law that mattered was the one you were willing to die defending. "You're not dying today," she told Connor. "And Rachel's gonna get her truth. I promise you that." She hauled him over her shoulder in a fireman's carry that made him groan but couldn't be helped, grabbed the waterproof case of evidence with her free hand, and started moving toward the hunting cabin she'd passed 2 miles back. Titan fell in beside her, blood on his muzzle, eyes bright and alert. Behind them, one of the wounded men was shouting into a radio, calling for backup, reporting officer down and suspect fleeing. Maya didn't look back. She just kept walking, kept breathing, kept putting one foot in front of the other, while the sun dropped toward the horizon and the temperature plunged, and somewhere in the distance she heard engines starting up. They were coming. More of them. Better armed, better prepared, with all the authority of federal law enforcement behind them, and nothing but lies to answer for. Maya adjusted Connor's weight across her shoulders and picked up her pace. The cabin was 2 miles through deep snow, in failing light, with a gut-shot FBI agent and a dog who'd just taken on 3 armed men without hesitation. 2 miles might as well have been 20. But she'd done harder things, in worse places, with less reason. Connor's blood was soaking through her jacket, warm against her shoulder. Reminder that time was a currency she was spending fast. His breathing had gone thready and irregular, and twice he mumbled something about Rachel that might have been an apology, or might have been a prayer. "Stay with me," Maya said again, and this time it sounded less like an order and more like a plea. Titan ranged ahead, breaking trail through the snow, his thick coat already crusted with ice. Behind them, the shouts had faded, but the engine sounds were getting closer, echoing off the granite peaks in ways that made it impossible to tell if they were half a mile away or right on top of her. Maya's legs were burning, and her lungs felt like they were full of broken glass, but she didn't slow down. Couldn't slow down, because somewhere in the darkening forest, there were men with guns and badges coming to finish what they'd started, and the only thing standing between Connor Walsh and a shallow grave was a 22-year-old former SEAL who'd left the service because she'd gotten tired of following orders that didn't sit right in her gut. Turned out, you couldn't outrun that feeling. It just followed you home and waited for a moment like this, when the choice came down to something simple and terrible. Do the easy thing and walk away, or do the right thing and face whatever came after. Maya had never been good at easy. The cabin appeared through the trees like an answer to a question she hadn't known how to ask. Rough-hewn logs, stone chimney, windows dark but intact. She hit the door with her shoulder, and it gave way with a crack of old wood. Inside smelled like dust and mouse droppings, and the particular kind of cold that came from a place nobody had heated in months. She laid Connor on the floor as gently as she could manage and started stripping off his frozen outer layers. His skin was ice pale, and when she pressed her fingers to his neck, the pulse was so faint she had to hold her breath to feel it. "Don't you quit on me," she said, already pulling emergency medical supplies from her pack. "You hear me, Connor Walsh? You don't get to quit." His eyes opened one more time, focused on her face with an intensity that seemed to take everything he had left. "Why?" he whispered. "You don't know me." Maya met his gaze and told him the only truth that mattered. "Because somebody has to give a damn," she said. "And today, that somebody's me." Then she got to work keeping him alive, while outside the cabin, the engine sounds grew louder, and Titan took up position by the door, watching the darkness with eyes that never blinked and loyalty that never wavered. Maya's hands were still shaking from adrenaline when she pressed the field dressing against Connor's wound and felt warm blood seep through the gauze faster than she could stop it. The cabin's single room had become a makeshift trauma bay, lit by 2 emergency glow sticks that turned everything the color of old bruises. Connor's breathing had gone shallow and rapid, each exhale carrying a sound like tearing paper. "Talk to me," Maya said, working the dressing tighter. "You stay conscious, you stay alive. Those the rules." Connor's eyes found hers through the chemical green light. "Rules don't apply anymore," he whispered. "Not when the people writing them are the same ones breaking them." Outside, Titan's low growl cut through the wind. Maya's head snapped toward the door. The dog stood rigid, ears forward, every muscle locked on something beyond the cabin walls. "How many?" Connor asked. "Don't know yet." Maya pulled the rifle off her shoulder and checked the magazine. 17 rounds. Against how many agents Vance had sent, she couldn't guess. But 17 wasn't enough. It was never enough. "You said they're selling seized evidence. Give me specifics. If I'm going to die defending you, I want to know what for." Connor's laugh came out wet and painful. "Ghost auctions. That's what Rachel called them. Evidence management takes in drugs, guns, cash from major busts. Supposed to catalog it, store it, eventually destroy it per federal protocol." He coughed, and blood flecked his lips. But Vance figured out nobody actually verifies destruction. No oversight, just paperwork saying it happened. So she's selling it back to the cartels. Not just cartels. Arms dealers, money launderers, anyone who'll pay premium for evidence that's supposed to not exist anymore. Connor's hand gripped her wrist with surprising strength. $47 million over 6 years. We found the accounts. Offshore, layered through shell companies, but Rachel traced it all back to Vance. Maya's mind was calculating distances and angles and how long she could hold a position against trained operators with better equipment. Why'd they kill Rachel and not you? They tried to kill us both. Car accident, staged hit and run. Rachel died on impact. I was in the passenger seat, survived with a concussion and cracked ribs. His voice dropped to something raw and broken. Spent 2 days in the hospital thinking it was just bad luck. Then I went through Rachel's encrypted files and found everything she'd compiled. Audio recordings, financial statements, photographs of evidence locker inventories with notes in her handwriting about discrepancies. Titan's growl deepened. Maya moved to the window and peered through a gap in the weathered boards. Headlights cut through the trees, multiple vehicles moving slow and deliberate up the access trail. She counted 4 sets. 4 vehicles meant anywhere from 8 to 20 people, all of them armed, all of them willing to murder a federal agent to keep their operation quiet. "They're here," she said. Connor tried to sit up and failed, his face going gray with pain. "You should run. Take the evidence case and go. I'm already dead, Maya. Don't let them make you dead, too." "Not how this works." Maya checked her Sig Sauer, then positioned herself near the door where she'd have clear lines of fire through the windows. "You said something about a dead man's switch. Explain it fast." "Cloud storage. Encrypted files set to auto-upload to news outlets, Justice Department, congressional oversight committees if I don't enter a password every 12 hours. Connor's breathing hitched. "Next check-in is in 4 hours and 37 minutes. If I miss it, everything goes public. Every document, every recording, every name. So they can't kill you." "They can if they get the password first." He touched the waterproof case lying beside him. "Everything's in here. Account numbers, encryption keys, the whole architecture. Vance gets this. She can shut down the dead man's switch and bury the evidence forever." The first vehicle stopped 50 yards from the cabin. Doors opened, but nobody got out, which meant they were gearing up, planning their approach, treating this like the tactical situation it was. Maya had maybe 2 minutes before they moved. "Titan, come!" she commanded. The shepherd crossed to her side, and she gripped his collar, needing the contact, the reminder that she wasn't alone in this. "Good boy. We're gonna need that perfect I talked about." Connor's voice came from the floor, weaker now. "Why are you doing this? You don't owe me anything." Maya kept her eyes on the tree line. "My last deployment, we lost a guy because command ignored intel that didn't fit their narrative. Good man, wife and 2 kids, died for a lie wrapped in a flag." She chambered around. "Told myself I'd never watch that happen again. Guess I meant it." A voice boomed through a bullhorn, distorted by wind, but unmistakable in its authority. "Maya Reeves, this is FBI Special Agent Carl Braddock. We know you're in there with Connor Walsh. We know you're both armed. Nobody else has to get hurt today." Maya didn't answer. Talking was negotiating, and negotiating meant they thought she might give up. "Walsh is wanted for theft of classified materials and assault on federal officers," Braddock continued. "You're aiding a fugitive. That's a felony. But you walk out now, hands visible. We can work something out. Your prior service. You understand how this goes." Connor made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Work something out means a bullet soon as you're in the open." "I know." Maya watched shadows moving between the vehicles, counting bodies, mapping positions. 8 that she could see. Maybe more hanging back. How many people did Vance put on her payroll? 23 agents across 6 field offices, plus support staff, evidence techs, people in the chain who looked the other way for cash. Connor's voice was fading. "She's been building this for years. Rachel and I were just the first ones to see the whole picture. A spotlight hit the cabin, bright enough to make Maya squint. She stepped back from the window as Braddock's voice came again, closer now, like he'd moved up with the light. "You've got 60 seconds to come out peacefully. After that, we're coming in, and we will use force." Maya looked at Titan, then at Connor bleeding on the floor, then at the evidence case that held the truth about 23 federal agents who'd traded their oaths for money. The math was simple and terrible. She was one person with a rifle and a sidearm against a tactical team with the full weight of federal authority behind them. Even if she held them off for an hour, for 2 hours, eventually they'd breach the cabin and finish this. Unless... "Connor, how sophisticated is your dead man switch? Can it be triggered manually?" His eyes focused on her. "There's a backup command, emergency release. Why?" "Because if they think killing you means the evidence goes public anyway, they might decide to negotiate for real." Maya moved to where he lay and crouched beside him. "Give me the password." "You don't understand. Emergency release means immediate upload. Everything. No delay. It'll burn Vance, but it'll also expose ongoing investigations, confidential informants, undercover operations. People will die." "People are already dying. Rachel's dead. You're dying. I count 8 shooters outside ready to murder anyone who gets between them and that case." Maya's voice went hard. "Sometimes the only way to stop the bleeding is to cut deep enough to hit bone. Give me the password." Connor stared at her for a long moment, reading something in her face that made him nod slowly. "Red 7, November, Tango, 4, 4, Whiskey. Type it exactly. Case sensitive." Maya pulled out Connor's phone from the evidence case, grateful it was still charged, still functional despite the cold and the violence. The screen showed a simple login interface. No frills, just a text field waiting for authorization. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. 30 seconds, Braddock shouted. Titan pressed against her leg, solid and warm and loyal in ways humans rarely managed. Maya typed the password wrong deliberately, watching the interface shake and reset. Then she raised her voice, loud enough to carry through the cabin walls. "Braddock, I've got Connor's phone right here. Dead man's switch, ready to go." "You breached this cabin." I hit send, and every news outlet in America gets your whole operation by sunrise. Silence outside, long enough that Maya knew she'd landed a hit. Then Braddock's voice came back, different now. No more bullhorn authority, just a man trying to calculate odds. "You're bluffing." "Try me." Maya moved to the window with the phone held high where the spotlight could catch it. "Connor's already told me everything. Deputy Director Vance. Ghost auctions. 47 million in offshore accounts. I hit this button, and your careers are over. Your pensions are gone, and you spend the next 20 years in federal prison explaining to other inmates how you used to be FBI. Another silence. Maya counted her own heartbeats, waiting. Then a different voice, female, smooth as poisoned honey, cut through the night. "Miss Reeves, my name is Elizabeth Vance. I'm Deputy Director of the FBI's Criminal Investigative Division. May I approach the cabin to speak with you directly?" Connor's eyes went wide. "Don't trust her. Maya, don't—" "I know," Maya said quietly. Then louder, toward the door. "Unarmed, hands visible. Your people stay where they are." "Agreed." Maya watched through the window gap as a woman stepped into the spotlight, hands raised to shoulder height, walking with a kind of confidence that came from never doubting you were the smartest person in any room. Elizabeth Vance was maybe 45, tall and lean in dark tactical gear that looked tailored, her silver blonde hair pulled back tight. Even at this distance, Maya could see the assessment in her eyes, calculating variables, measuring risk like an actuary pricing death. Vance stopped 10 feet from the door. "You've put me in an interesting position, Miss Reeves." "Good. Connor Walsh is a thief and a traitor. The documents he stole are classified federal evidence related to ongoing investigations. By harboring him, you've committed a felony. By threatening to release that information, you've committed several more." Vance's smile was professional and empty. "But I'm a reasonable person. I'm willing to offer you a deal." Maya kept the phone visible, finger near the send button she hadn't actually loaded yet. "I'm listening." "Walk away right now. Leave Connor and the evidence. I'll make sure the charges against you disappear. You'll have immunity, witness protection if you want it, and enough money to start fresh anywhere in the world." Vance's voice dropped to something almost gentle. "You're 22 years old. You have your whole life ahead of you. Don't throw it away for a man you met an hour ago." Connor's hand found Maya's ankle and squeezed. She didn't look down. "What happens to Connor?" Maya asked. "He'll receive the medical attention he needs. Then he'll stand trial for his crimes." "You mean he'll die in custody and it'll be ruled a suicide?" Vance's smile didn't change. "Accidents happen, especially to people who make poor choices." She took a step closer. "I'm offering you survival, Miss Reeves. Take it. Whatever Connor told you is a lie, constructed by a disturbed individual facing criminal prosecution. Ask yourself why you'd believe him over 23 decorated federal agents." Maya felt something cold settle in her chest. The same feeling she'd had in Kandahar, when command ordered her team to secure a compound they knew was rigged with explosives. When following orders meant walking into a kill box, and the only question was whether your conscience could survive the alternative. "Here's what I believe," Maya said. "I believe Rachel Kim died because she was honest. I believe Connor's got a bullet in him because he wouldn't stay quiet. And I believe you're standing outside this cabin instead of breaching because you know the second you kill us, every reporter in America gets proof that the FBI's been running evidence back to the cartels for 6 years." Vance's expression finally shifted, the professional mask cracking just enough to show something reptilian underneath. "You're making a mistake." "Wouldn't be my first." Maya raised the phone higher. "Walk away, Vance. Take your people and go. We'll sit tight until federal marshals get here, the real kind, who aren't on your payroll. Then we all tell our stories to people who actually care about the truth." For 3 heartbeats, Vance just stared at her, and Maya understood she was watching a woman decide whether mercy or murder would better serve her interests. Then Vance's hand moved toward her belt, and Maya's finger dropped toward the phone screen, and everything hung suspended in the half-second before violence. Titan's bark shattered the moment, sharp and urgent, but not directed at Vance. Maya spun toward the back wall where Titan had locked onto something, and saw smoke seeping through gaps in the floorboards, thin gray tendrils rising like ghosts. Then she smelled it. Chemical accelerant, gasoline or camp fuel, and understood with terrible clarity that Vance had never intended to negotiate at all. "They're burning us out," Connor rasped. Maya's mind shifted to pure survival calculation. Front door covered by Vance and her team. Back wall on fire. Windows too small to climb through with an injured man. 60 seconds until the smoke got thick enough to choke them. Maybe 90 before the flames found the old dry timber in the walls and turned the cabin into a furnace. She grabbed Connor under the arms and hauled him toward the door, ignoring his grunt of pain. "Titan, out!" The shepherd hit the door first, low and fast, as Maya kicked it open and followed with Connor slung across her shoulders and the Sig Sauer in her right hand. Spotlight blinded her, but she fired anyway, 3 rounds at the light source, and heard glass shatter as darkness rushed back in. Vance's voice cut through the chaos. "Take them down!" Muzzle flashes erupted from the tree line, and Maya threw herself sideways, rolling Connor behind a stack of firewood as rounds punched through the cabin walls behind them. Titan was already moving, a shadow with teeth, and somewhere in the darkness a man screamed. Connor's weight was dead against her, and when Maya checked his pulse, it was fluttering like a bird dying in her hands. "Stay with me," she said, but his eyes had rolled back and his breathing had gone ragged. The cabin roof caught fire with a whoosh that lit the night orange and angry. Heat washed over Maya's back, and she knew she had maybe 30 seconds before this position became untenable, before Vance's people could regroup and finish what they'd started. She looked at the phone in her hand, at the password screen still waiting, and made a choice that felt like jumping off a cliff with no idea what waited below. She typed the password correctly this time. Red 7, November Tango 44 Whiskey. The screen changed, showing a single button labeled Emergency Release, with a warning in red text. This action cannot be undone. "Connor," Maya whispered, "if you can hear me, I'm sorry." She pressed the button. The phone screen flashed green with a single word that felt like detonation. Uploading. Maya watched the progress bar fill while gunfire chewed through the firewood stack above her head, and Connor's blood soaked warm through her jacket sleeve. 30%. 40. Every percentage point was a document, a recording, a piece of evidence flying through encrypted channels toward newsrooms and congressional servers where Vance's money couldn't reach. Vance's voice cut through the gunfire, no longer smooth, raw with something that might have been panic. "Ceasefire! Ceasefire now!" The shooting stopped. Maya kept the SIG trained on the tree line, while Titan circled back to her position, fur singed, eyes bright with adrenaline. The phone hit 70%, and Maya felt her chest tighten, because this was real now, irreversible, the kind of choice that rewrote everything after it. "You just killed yourself," Vance called out. "You understand that? Those files go public, you're not a hero, you're a liability. Every intelligence agency in this country will want you disappeared." Connor's hand found Maya's wrist, grip weak but insistent. His eyes were open, barely, and when he spoke, his voice came out like gravel scraping bone. "What did you do?" "What you couldn't." Maya checked the phone. 85%. I hit send. Something broke across Connor's face. Not relief, not gratitude. Something closer to grief. "Maya, no. You don't understand what's in those files. It's not just Vance, it's..." A new voice cracked through the night, deep and carrying authority that made even the wind seem to pause. "Federal agents, stand down. This is Director Marcus Cole. I said, stand down." Maya's head snapped up. Through the smoke and firelight, she saw headlights approaching from the opposite direction. 3 black SUVs moving fast up the access road. The lead vehicle stopped, and a man stepped out. 60-something, with iron-gray hair and the kind of presence that didn't need a bullhorn. He wore a suit under a winter coat, and his FBI credentials hung from his neck, like they'd been there so long they'd become part of his body. Vance moved toward him, hands spread in a gesture that looked almost pleading. "Sir, this is a tactical situation. Walsh is armed, dangerous. He's bleeding to death from a gunshot wound while your people try to burn him alive." Cole's voice could have cut steel. "You want to explain that to me, Deputy Director?" "Sir, you don't have the full picture. Walsh stole classified materials, assaulted federal officers. He's activated some kind of data breach that's compromising ongoing investigations as we speak." Vance's composure was cracking, and Maya could see the calculation behind her eyes, trying to find the angle that would save this. "I was attempting to contain the situation before..." Cole held up his phone. The screen glowed in the darkness. "I've been receiving files for the last 90 seconds. financial records, audio recordings, photographs of evidence inventories with your signature on the destruction orders, Elizabeth. Want to tell me what I'm looking at? The phone in Maya's hand hit 100% and chimed softly. The uploading bar changed to complete. She felt Connor's grip loosen on her wrist. Vance's face went very still, very blank. The mask of someone who'd just watched their entire life collapse in real time. Then she turned and started walking toward the tree line, not running, just walking with the steady purposefulness of someone who'd already made a decision. "Stop," Cole ordered. Vance kept walking. "Elizabeth Vance, stop right now or I will have you stopped." Vance pulled something from her jacket pocket, small and dark, and Maya's combat instincts screamed gun, but it wasn't a gun. It was another phone, and Vance was typing fast with her thumbs while she walked. Cole nodded to the agents who'd arrived with him, and two of them moved to intercept Vance. She didn't resist when they grabbed her arms, didn't fight when they took the phone from her hands, just smiled like someone who'd already won a game nobody else knew they were playing. "Too late," Vance said. "You think those files mean anything? Evidence gets corrupted. Witnesses recant. Juries get confused when defense attorneys start talking about chain of custody and authentication protocols." Her eyes found Maya across the burning wreckage. That girl just uploaded 60 gigabytes of data that any first-year law student can argue was tampered with. No metadata verification, no forensic certification, no established chain of custody. It's garbage, Marcus. Inadmissible garbage. Cole's jaw tightened, but he didn't answer because they both knew she was right. Maya felt something cold settle in her stomach as she understood what Vance had done, what she'd counted on from the beginning. The truth didn't matter if you could make people doubt it was true. Connor coughed, and blood bubbled at his lips. "Rachel," he whispered. "Have to tell them about Rachel." Maya leaned close. "What about her?" "Not dead." Connor's eyes focused on hers with terrible intensity. "Witness protection. We faked her death because Vance had already tried twice. Rachel's alive. She's in WITSEC, and she has the original evidence. Physical evidence. Seized from the actual lockers before Vance could destroy it. Everything. Kilos of cocaine with chain of custody paperwork signed by agents who were supposed to have incinerated it. Weapons with serial numbers traced back to cases Vance claimed were disposed of. Hard drives with financial transactions that matched the offshore accounts." Maya's heart kicked hard against her ribs. "Where?" "Federal Courthouse in Sacramento. Evidence locker B7. Rachel put it there 3 days before we staged the accident." Connor's breathing hitched and his face went gray. "She's waiting for my signal to come forward. Password-protected testimony. Sealed affidavit. The whole thing. Ironclad legal." "What's the signal?" Connor's hand fumbled at the evidence case, still strapped across his chest. "In here. Encrypted drive. Rachel's the only one who can decode it, but you need my authorization code to activate the transfer." He gripped Maya's collar and pulled her down until their faces were inches apart. "Listen to me. Vance just texted orders to Sacramento. They'll move on that locker tonight, destroy everything before Rachel can testify. You have maybe 4 hours before federal agents who are supposed to protect evidence show up to eliminate it." Director Cole had crossed the space between them, trailed by 2 agents with medical kits. "Let my people work on him," Cole said, not unkind, but not asking either. Maya stood and faced him while the medics dropped beside Connor and started cutting away his jacket. "You know about Rachel Kim?" Cole's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "I know Rachel Kim died in a hit-and-run 3 months ago." "She didn't die." She's in witness protection because your deputy director tried to murder her. Maya pulled the evidence case from Connor's chest and held it between them. And right now, Vance's people are on their way to Sacramento to destroy the physical evidence that proves everything in those files I just uploaded. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. Maya met his eyes and saw a man trying to decide whether to believe a 22-year-old former SEAL or a decorated deputy director with 20 years of service. Connor Walsh took a bullet trying to expose corruption in your evidence management division. Rachel Kim went into hiding because staying visible would have gotten her killed. And I just released 60 gigabytes of documents that Vance claims are inadmissible because they can't be authenticated. She opened the case and pulled out the encrypted drive. But this can be authenticated because Rachel's alive and she's got the physical evidence to back up every word in those files. Cole was quiet for a long moment, reading her face the way cops learn to read people when their lives depended on knowing who was lying. Then he took the drive and turned to one of his agents. "Get me secure comms to the Sacramento field office. I want evidence locker B7 under armed guard in the next 20 minutes. Nobody touches anything in that locker without my direct authorization. And I mean nobody." The agent moved fast. Cole looked back at Maya. "If you're lying to me..." "I'm not." "If you're lying to me," Cole continued, voice hard, "you'll spend the next decade in federal prison wishing you died on this mountain. But if you're telling the truth, if Rachel Kim is alive and this evidence is real, then you just saved the Bureau from eating itself from the inside." He paused. "Either way, you're coming with me. You're a material witness now." Maya glanced at Connor. The medics had him on a backboard, IV lines running, pressure bandages wrapped tight around his torso. His eyes were closed, but his chest still moved. "Is he going to make it?" she asked. One of the medics looked up, face grim. "If we get him to a trauma center in the next 90 minutes, maybe. It's going to be close." Titan pressed against Maya's leg, and she ran her hand through his fur, feeling the steady warmth there, the uncomplicated loyalty that didn't care about evidence or federal jurisdiction or whether the people wearing badges were the good guys or the bad guys. The dog had alerted to Connor's scent in the wind, and everything after had been consequence, choice stacked on choice, until the weight of it felt like it might crush her. Cole's radio crackled, and a voice came through, tense and clipped. "Director, Sacramento reports locker B7 is secure. But sir, there's a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The evidence isn't there. Locker's empty. Looks like it was cleaned out recently, maybe in the last few hours." Maya felt the ground drop out from under her. She looked at Connor's unconscious face and understood with sick certainty that Vance had been 3 moves ahead the whole time, that every piece of physical evidence Rachel had supposedly hidden was already ash in an incinerator somewhere, that the truth they'd bled for was smoke. Cole's expression went dangerous. "Search every locker in that facility. Pull security footage. I want to know who accessed B7 and when." The radio crackled again. Different voice, higher ranking by the sound of it. "Director Cole, this is Special Agent in Charge Morrison in Sacramento. Sir, we've got a woman here claiming to be Rachel Kim. She's demanding to speak with Connor Walsh. Says she has information about Deputy Director Vance." Everything stopped. Maya's breath, her heartbeat, the world spinning on its axis. Cole keyed his radio. Put her on. Static, then a female voice that sounded like it had been crying, but was done with that now. All business, all purpose.
"Director Cole, this is Rachel Kim, badge number 847226634, currently under WITSEC protection. I need to speak with Connor Walsh immediately."
"Agent Kim, Walsh is critically injured. He can't..."
"Then you listen." Rachel's voice cut through like a blade. "The evidence in locker B7 was bait. I moved the real evidence 3 days ago after I caught a WITSEC handler taking photos of my safe house. The physical evidence is in a secure location known only to me and Connor. But I need his authorization code to access it, and I need it in the next 2 hours before Vance's cleanup crew figures out where I really hid everything. Maya grabbed the radio from Cole's hand. "Rachel, this is Maya Reeves. Connor's unconscious. He's got a bullet in his gut. He might not wake up. What's the authorization code?" Silence on the other end. Then Rachel's voice came back, quieter now, threaded with something that sounded like heartbreak. "He didn't tell you? The code's biometric."
Retinal scan plus voice authentication plus a 12-digit password that only Connor knows. If he's unconscious, her voice cracked. If he dies, the evidence is locked forever, encrypted with protocols I can't break. Maya looked at Connor's gray face, at the medics working over him with the desperate efficiency of people trying to hold back death with their bare hands. "How long does he have to stay alive?" "Long enough to give me the code and confirm the retinal scan." Rachel paused. "Long enough to forgive me for letting him take the fall while I hid." One of the medics looked up at Maya. "His blood pressure's dropping. We need to move now or we lose him." Cole took the radio back. "Agent Kim, where are you exactly?" "Federal Courthouse, 3rd floor, sealed courtroom. I'm not leaving this building until I know Connor's alive and the evidence is secure." "Hold your position. I'm sending a team." Cole turned to his agents. "Get Walsh on a helicopter to the nearest trauma center. Full protective detail. Nobody talks to him without my authorization. And somebody find out where the hell Vance's phone call went before we grabbed her." The agent who'd taken Vance's phone looked up from examining it. "Sir, encrypted messaging app. Can't trace the recipients without her password, but I can see she sent messages to 6 different numbers in the last 90 seconds before we stopped her." "6 cleanup teams," Maya said. "She's got people moving on Rachel's real location right now." Cole's face went hard. "Then we'd better move faster." He looked at Maya. "You're coming with me to Sacramento. Vance doesn't know you, doesn't know what you look like beyond tonight. You might be the only person who can get close to Rachel without triggering whatever trap Vance has waiting." Maya's hand found Titan's collar. "My dog comes." "Your dog comes." Cole started toward his SUV, then stopped and looked back at her. "You know you just declared war on some very dangerous people, right? People with resources, with access, with nothing left to lose." "Yeah," Maya said. "I know." "Why'd you do it? Why hit that button when you knew what it would cost?" Maya thought about Rachel Kim alive when everyone thought she was dead. About Connor Walsh taking a bullet for the truth. About the moment on that cliff edge when she could have walked away and chosen not to. "Because somebody has to give a damn," she said. "And today, that somebody's me." Cole studied her for a moment, then nodded like she'd passed some test she hadn't known she was taking. "Let's go find out if giving a damn is enough." They loaded into the SUV, Maya and Titan in the back, Cole riding shotgun while a young agent drove like every second mattered because every second did. Behind them, the cabin collapsed in on itself, sending sparks spiraling into the winter sky. Ahead, the road dropped away into darkness and possibility, and the kind of danger that didn't announce itself until the trigger was already pulled. Maya watched the burning cabin disappear through the rear window and thought about Connor's eyes when he'd realized she'd hit the button. The way his face had broken with something that looked like grief. What had he been trying to warn her about before Director Cole arrived? What else was in those files that she didn't know, that might be worse than Vance's corruption? The SUV took a corner too fast, and Maya braced herself against the door. Titan's weight settled against her leg, warm and solid and real. She ran her fingers through his fur and felt him lean into the contact. "Good boy,"
she whispered. "We're not done yet."
The dog looked up at her with eyes that didn't judge, didn't question, just trusted that wherever this was going, they'd face it together. Maya pulled out her phone and looked at the upload confirmation still glowing on the screen. 60 gigabytes of evidence, now sitting on servers across the country, beyond Vance's reach, but maybe not beyond her influence. If those files really were inadmissible, if the physical evidence was locked behind Connor's dying authorization, then the only thing standing between justice and oblivion was Rachel Kim's testimony, and whatever Maya could do to keep her alive long enough to give it. The SUV's headlights cut through the darkness, and Maya realized with a clarity that felt like falling that she'd just traded her quiet civilian life for something that would follow her forever. That the moment she'd pressed that button, she'd stepped across a line she couldn't uncross. But Connor was still breathing, and Rachel was still alive, and the truth was still worth fighting for, even when fighting meant bleeding. Cole's phone rang, and he answered on the first ring. "Talk to me." Maya couldn't hear the other end, but she watched Cole's face go tight. "How many?" he asked. A pause. "Mobilize every asset we have in the Sacramento region. I want Rachel Kim extracted and secured within the hour." Another pause. "I don't care about jurisdiction. This is direct order from the director's office. Move, now." He ended the call and turned to look at Maya. Vance's 6 messages went to tactical teams across California. They're converging on Sacramento. We've got maybe 45 minutes before they hit the courthouse. "How many people does she have?" "Enough." Cole's voice was grim. "And they're willing to die to keep this buried, because if it comes out, they're all looking at life in federal prison." Maya checked her Sig Sauer, counted the rounds she had left, and did the math that said it wouldn't be nearly enough. "Then we'd better make sure it comes out." The driver pushed the SUV faster, and the forest blurred past, and somewhere behind them, Connor Walsh was fighting for his life. While ahead, Rachel Kim waited in a courthouse, surrounded by people who wanted her dead. Maya closed her eyes and thought about the choice she'd made on that cliff edge. The decision to follow Titan's alert instead of walking away, and understood that some choices didn't end when you made them. They just kept unfolding, consequence after consequence, until you either stood by what you'd started or let it bury you. She wasn't ready to be buried yet. The Sacramento courthouse rose against the night sky like a fortress, built from taxpayer money and broken promises. Maya hit the ground running before the SUV fully stopped, Titan at her heel, while Cole barked orders into his phone about perimeter security and extraction protocols. The building's lobby was empty except for 2 federal marshals who looked too young to be holding rifles, but held them anyway, with the kind of nervous tension that made Maya's combat instincts scream. "Third floor, sealed courtroom," one of them said. "Woman's alone, armed. Won't talk to anyone except Connor Walsh." "She talked to me," Maya said, already moving toward the stairs because elevators were death traps when people with guns were hunting you. Cole grabbed her arm. "Wait, we don't know what's waiting up there." "That's why I'm going first." Maya pulled free and started climbing, counting steps, because counting kept your mind sharp when fear wanted to make it stupid. Titan's claws clicked on marble, and somewhere above, a door opened and closed, with the kind of finality that said someone was either coming or going, and either way, it mattered. She reached the 3rd floor and found a woman standing in the hallway with a Glock 19 held low but ready. Rachel Kim was maybe 30, Asian American, with dark hair pulled back severe, and eyes that looked like they'd stopped trusting anything 3 months ago when someone tried to kill her. She wore a windbreaker over body armor, and her finger was on the trigger guard, not the trigger, which meant she had training and discipline. "Maya Reeves?" Rachel's voice carried the kind of exhaustion that came from running too long with nowhere safe to stop.
Yeah. Where's Connor? Surgery. Maybe dead, maybe not. Depends on whether God's paying attention today. Maya kept her hands visible, palms forward. He gave me the encryption drive. Said you're the only one who can unlock it. Rachel's jaw tightened. Is he conscious? Was when he told me about the biometric authorization. Retinal scan, voice authentication, 12-digit code. Then he passed out from blood loss and shock. Maya took a step closer.
You want to tell me where the real evidence is before Vance's people show up and turn this courthouse into a war zone? How do I know you're not one of them? You don't. But Connor trusted me enough to tell me you're alive, which means either I'm legitimate or he's already dead, and it doesn't matter anyway. Maya met Rachel's eyes and saw the calculation happening there. The same math she'd done on that cliff edge about who to trust when trust could get you killed. We've got maybe 30 minutes before armed teams breach this building. You can spend that time testing me, or you can spend it getting the evidence secured. Your choice. Rachel lowered the Glock slightly. The evidence is in a safety deposit box at First National Bank, 2 blocks from here. But the box requires dual authorization. My key plus Connor's biometric scan plus his spoken password. Her voice cracked. If he dies before giving me that password, everything we did was for nothing. Rachel died for nothing. You didn't die. I might as well have. Been living in a motel room under a fake name, eating takeout, and watching the news to see if anyone's looking for the truth. Nobody is. Nobody cares. Just me and Connor, and now Connor's bleeding out in some hospital, and I'm standing here talking to a stranger about evidence that might not even matter anymore. Maya heard footsteps echoing up from the lobby, multiple sets moving fast and tactical. Cole's voice carried up the stairwell, giving orders, deploying agents to defensive positions. Rachel's eyes tracked toward the sound, and her grip on the Glock tightened. They're with us, Maya said. Director Cole. He's trying to help. Director Cole has been trying to help for 6 years, while Vance built her empire right under his nose. Rachel's laugh came out bitter. Forgive me if I don't trust institutional authority anymore. A radio crackled, and Cole's voice came through Maya's earpiece. We've got movement outside. 3 vehicles, unmarked, approaching from the north. They're trying to look civilian, but the formation gives them away. Maya keyed her mic. How long? 5 minutes, maybe less. She looked at Rachel. We need to move. Now. I'm not leaving without the evidence. Rachel pulled a key from her pocket, small and brass and ordinary, except for what it represented. This opens the box, but without Connor's authorization, it's just metal. Then we bring Connor to the bank. He's in surgery. Then we get him out of surgery. Maya's mind was already running tactical scenarios, calculating time and distance and how many laws she'd have to break to make this work. Where's the hospital? Mercy General, 15 minutes south. Rachel shook her head. You can't just walk into a trauma center and extract a patient mid-operation. They'll call security, police. They'll do exactly what we tell them when Director Cole explains this is a matter of national security. Maya started toward the stairs. Come on. Rachel didn't move. Why are you doing this? You don't know me, don't know Connor, don't owe us anything. Maya stopped and looked back. Because 3 months ago you tried to expose corruption and they murdered you for it. Except they didn't really murder you. They just murdered the life you had before and left you in a motel room, waiting for someone to care enough to ask questions. She paused. I'm asking questions. That gonna be enough for you? For a long moment, Rachel just stared at her, and Maya saw something shift behind her eyes. Some decision being made about trust and risk, and whether dying for the truth was better than living with the lie. Then Rachel holstered her Glock and nodded. Let's go get my partner. They hit the stairs at a run, while Cole coordinated defensive positions below. Maya's earpiece crackled with updates that got worse with each transmission. 6 vehicles now, maybe more, converging from multiple directions like they'd been planning this assault for weeks. Vance's cleanup crews weren't just trying to eliminate Rachel. They were trying to erase the whole operation before anyone could connect the pieces. The lobby had transformed into a defensive position. Federal agents behind overturned furniture with rifles trained on entrances. Cole stood at the center, giving orders with the calm of a man who'd commanded people through worse. But Maya could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hand kept drifting toward his sidearm, like he knew this was about to get ugly. "Change of plans," Maya said. "We need to get to Mercy General. Connor's the only one who can unlock the evidence, and he's currently on an operating table." Cole's expression went dark. "You want to extract a critical patient from surgery during a tactical situation?" "I want to finish what Connor and Rachel started before Vance's people burn it all down." Maya glanced at Rachel. "How much evidence are we talking about?" "Enough to prosecute 23 agents, seize 47 million in assets, and overturn 19 wrongful convictions where evidence was destroyed to protect criminal networks." Rachel's voice was steady now, purpose replacing fear. "Physical evidence. Drugs, weapons, financial records, all of it cataloged and documented with chain of custody intact. It's ironclad, Director. If we can get it in front of a grand jury, Vance and everyone she's protecting goes down." Cole pulled out his phone and made a call that lasted 15 seconds. When he hung up, his face was grim. "Hospital confirms Connor's in critical condition. They've got him stabilized, but he's unconscious. Heavy sedation. Won't be waking up for hours." "Then we wake him up," Maya said. "You can't just watch me." Maya started toward the door. "Rachel, you're with me. Cole, you hold this position and keep Vance's people occupied. We'll take a back exit, get to the hospital, get Connor conscious long enough to give us what we need." A window shattered and gunfire erupted from the street. Everyone dropped and return fire hammered back in controlled bursts. Maya grabbed Rachel and pulled her behind a marble pillar, while Titan pressed against her leg, alert but not panicking because the dog had been under fire before and knew the drill. Cole's voice cut through the chaos. "They're breaching from the east entrance. Fall back to secondary positions." More windows exploded inward. Smoke grenades hit the floor and started billowing gray-white clouds that turned the lobby into a ghost maze. Maya pulled Rachel toward a service corridor she'd spotted during their approach, moving fast and low while bullets sparked off marble above their heads. "This way," she said, and they were running through narrow halls that smelled like floor cleaner and old paper, Titan ranging ahead, their footsteps echoing like drumbeats against the sound of combat behind them. They hit an emergency exit, and the night air bit cold after the smoke and gunpowder. Maya scanned the parking lot, saw Cole's SUV still sitting where they'd left it, keys in the ignition, because when you were the director, you didn't worry about car theft. "Can you drive?" Maya asked Rachel. "Yes." "Then drive. I'll navigate." They piled into the vehicle, and Rachel gunned the engine, tires screaming as they took the exit too fast and slid onto the main road. Maya checked the rear view and saw muzzle flashes still lighting up the courthouse windows like deadly fireflies. Her radio crackled. "Maya, this is Cole. They're inside the building. I'm ordering full evacuation." "We're clear. Heading to Mercy General." "Negative. Too dangerous. They'll have teams there too." "Then we'll go through them." Maya switched frequencies and tried to raise the hospital directly. Static answered, then a professional voice that sounded harassed. "Mercy General Emergency Services. This is Maya Reeves, working with FBI Director Marcus Cole. We need immediate access to a patient, Connor Walsh, currently in surgery. This is a matter of federal—" "Ma'am, I can't discuss patient information over an unsecured line." "Then put me through to hospital security, now." A pause, then clicking, then a different voice, male and suspicious.
Security Chief Patterson, who is this? Maya made a decision that would either open doors or get her arrested. Chief Patterson, this is Special Agent Maya Reeves, FBI. The lie came out smooth because sometimes the truth was too complicated to serve justice. We have credible intelligence that armed individuals are en route to your facility to harm a federal witness currently in your care.
Patient name, Connor Walsh, gunshot trauma. Admitted approximately 90 minutes ago. Patterson's voice went sharp. What kind of threat? The kind that doesn't care about hospital security or civilian casualties. I need you to move Walsh to a secure location within your facility and prepare for possible hostile action. Director Cole is coordinating with local law enforcement, but you need to act now. Jesus Christ. Patterson was already shouting orders in the background. How many hostiles? Unknown. Could be as few as 4, could be a dozen. They'll try to look legitimate, probably claim to be federal agents with credentials. Don't believe them. Don't let anyone near Walsh except the surgical team already treating him. Rachel took a corner hard enough to make the tires squeal. Maya braced against the dashboard and kept talking. We're 5 minutes out. Have someone meet us at the emergency entrance with an escort to Walsh's location. Copy that. But ma'am, if this is real, if armed personnel are targeting my hospital, then you do your job and protect your patients while I do mine and stop them. Maya ended the call and looked at Rachel. How fast can this thing go? Fast enough. Rachel pushed the accelerator and the SUV surged forward, weaving through light traffic like water finding gaps. You just impersonated a federal agent. I'm aware. That's a felony. Add it to the list. Maya checked her Sig Sauer, counted rounds again, and accepted that she was probably going to run out of ammunition before she ran out of people who needed shooting. How well do you know Connor? Rachel's hands tightened on the wheel. We were partners for 3 years. Good partners. The kind where you don't have to explain yourself because they already know what you're thinking. Her voice went quiet. When Vance tried to kill us, Connor insisted on being the one to stay visible, to take the heat while I disappeared. Said he had less to lose because he'd already buried 2 wives and didn't have kids. Like that made his life worth less than mine. Sounds like he cared about you. He did. Does. Rachel's eyes were wet, but her voice stayed steady. That's why I can't let him die thinking I abandoned him. That's why I need him to wake up and see that I kept fighting, that I didn't run far enough to forget why we started this. The hospital appeared ahead, 6 stories of glass and concrete lit up like a beacon. Maya saw security vehicles blocking the main entrance, saw uniforms moving with purpose that said Patterson had taken her warning seriously. Rachel pulled into the emergency bay, and they were out of the SUV before it fully stopped, moving toward a heavy-set man in a security uniform who had one hand on his radio and the other on his sidearm. Chief Patterson? Maya said. That's me. You Agent Reeves? Close enough. Where's Connor Walsh? 3rd floor, post-op recovery. We moved him to a secure room. Limited access. Armed guard outside. Patterson's eyes tracked past them toward the street. You really think someone's coming for him? I know they are. Maya heard sirens in the distance. Multiple units, approaching fast. Those your people, or theirs? Patterson's radio crackled with a dispatcher's voice, reporting multiple units responding to shots fired at the federal courthouse. Not mine. Local PD getting dragged into whatever this is. Then we need to move Walsh again. Somewhere they can't find him. Somewhere we can wake him up long enough to get what we need. A doctor appeared, young and exhausted, still wearing surgical scrubs spotted with blood. You can't move him. He's critical, barely stable. Moving him could restart the internal bleeding and if we don't move him, the people who put that bullet in him will finish the job. Maya looked the doctor in the eyes. How long before he can be conscious? 12 hours minimum, probably longer. The sedation protocols for trauma surgery aren't something you just reverse. His body needs time to... We don't have 12 hours. We've got maybe 30 minutes before this hospital becomes a battlefield. Maya's voice went hard. Is there a way to wake him up temporarily? Stimulants? Adrenaline? Something that gives us 5 minutes of consciousness? The doctor's face showed the ethical nightmare of what Maya was asking. If I do that, if I push his system when it's already compromised, I could kill him. If you don't do it, the people outside will definitely kill him. Rachel stepped forward. I'm his partner. He'd want this. He'd want his death to mean something, instead of dying with the evidence locked in a box nobody can open. The young doctor looked between them, then at Chief Patterson, then back at Maya. This is insane. Welcome to Tuesday. Maya checked her watch. 28 minutes. Make your choice, Doctor. Save one man and maybe let 23 corrupt agents walk free. Or risk one man to take down a conspiracy that's been selling justice to the highest bidder for 6 years. The doctor's jaw worked like he was chewing on words he didn't want to swallow. Then he nodded once, sharp and decisive. 3rd floor, room 347. But I need you to understand, if his heart stops, if the shock is too much, there's nothing I can do. Understood, Maya said, already moving toward the stairs. They climbed fast, Titan's claws clicking rhythm against tile, while behind them the sirens grew louder, and somewhere in the building an alarm started screaming. 3rd floor opened into a corridor painted institutional beige, with that hospital smell of antiseptic trying to hide death. Room 347 had 2 armed security guards outside, who looked at Maya with the kind of suspicion that said they knew something bad was coming and weren't sure which side she was on. Stand down, Patterson ordered. They're cleared. Inside the room, Connor Walsh looked smaller than he had on the mountain, diminished by machines and tubes and the particular vulnerability of unconscious men who'd been cut open to keep them alive. His face was gray-pale, and monitors beeped steady confirmation that his heart was still trying to do the job, even if the rest of him was ready to quit. Rachel moved to his bedside and took his hand, and Maya saw something break across her face. Some wall she'd been holding up for 3 months, finally crumbling. "Connor," Rachel whispered. "Connor, I'm here. You're not alone." The young doctor was already preparing a syringe, hands steady, despite the fear Maya could see in his eyes. This is a combination of stimulants that should bring him to consciousness for approximately 5 to 10 minutes. After that, his body will crash hard, and he'll need immediate intervention to prevent cardiac arrest. He looked at Rachel. "Whatever you need from him, get it fast." Rachel nodded, still holding Connor's hand like it was the only solid thing in a world that had gone liquid and dangerous. The doctor administered the injection, and they waited while seconds stretched into small eternities. Connor's eyelids flickered. His breathing changed, deepened, caught on something that might have been pain, or memory, or both. Then his eyes opened and found Rachel's face, and something that looked like joy and grief mixed together crossed his features. "You're alive," he whispered. "So are you, for now." Rachel leaned close. "Connor, I need the password, the authorization code for the evidence. We've got maybe 5 minutes before your body shuts down, and maybe less before Vance's people breach this hospital." Connor's eyes tracked past her, found Maya standing near the door. "You hit the button." "I did. The files, they're not just about Vance." His words came slow, fighting through pain and sedation. "There's something else, in the offshore accounts. Payments from someone higher, someone who's been protecting the whole operation." Maya felt ice slide down her spine. "Who?" Connor's hand gripped Rachel's with desperate strength. "Senator Morrison, chair of the Judiciary Committee. He's been taking cuts from Vance's ghost auctions for 4 years.
using his position to block investigations, bury oversight requests, keep the whole thing running. He coughed, and blood flecked his lips. If that goes public, it's not just Vance who falls. It's the entire committee structure, congressional hearings, constitutional crisis. Rachel's face had gone white. "Connor, why didn't you tell me?" "Because I knew you'd want to release it. And releasing it means war. Not just with Vance. With people who have the power to make evidence disappear, to make witnesses recant, to make the truth look like conspiracy theory." His eyes found Maya again.
That's what I was trying to tell you before you hit that button. You didn't just expose corruption. You exposed the people protecting it. And they will burn this entire country down before they let that stick. Outside the room, glass shattered, and someone started screaming. Maya didn't wait for the screaming to stop. She moved to the door and saw smoke billowing down the corridor, figures in tactical gear advancing through it with weapons raised. Not hospital security, not local police. These were professionals, moving with the kind of coordination that said they'd done this before and weren't planning to leave witnesses. "Rachel, the password, now!" Connor's voice came weak but clear. "Delta 9 Tango Sierra 8 3 Romeo November 5 2 Alpha Kilo." Each word cost him something, and by the end his breathing had gone ragged. "Safety Deposit Box 447, First National Bank. Rachel's key plus my retinal scan plus voice authentication." Rachel pulled out a small device from her jacket, something that looked like a modified smartphone. "I need your eyes, Connor. Look here." Connor tried to focus, but his pupils were dilating wrong. Consciousness already slipping away as the stimulants battled sedation and trauma. Rachel grabbed his face and held it steady, while the device scanned his retinas with a beam of red light that made him flinch. "Got it," she said. "Now voice authentication. Say your full name and badge number." "Connor James Walsh, badge 729448821. His words slurred together. "Rachel, if this goes wrong..." "It won't." "If it does, tell Maya she was right. Somebody had to give a damn." His eyes closed, and the monitor started screaming as his heart rate plummeted. The young doctor shoved past Maya and started working over Connor with the desperate efficiency of someone fighting death, hand to hand. "Out! Everyone out! Now!" Maya grabbed Rachel's arm and pulled her toward the window. "Can't go through the door. They're coming up the hall." "Third floor window? Better than a bullet." Maya kicked the window twice, and safety glass cracked into spiderweb patterns. Third kick, and it gave way. Cold air rushed in, and she looked down at a maintenance platform 10 feet below. "Titan, jump!" The German Shepherd didn't hesitate, launching through the window and landing clean on the metal grating. Maya went next, dropping and rolling to absorb impact, then reached up for Rachel, who was already climbing through. Gunfire erupted from Connor's room, and Maya's chest tightened because she knew what that sound meant, knew the young doctor and security guards were dying for trying to protect a man who'd already given everything he had. Rachel hit the platform beside her. "The bank! We have to get there before they figure out where the evidence is." "They already know. Vance isn't stupid. She's got teams moving on every location Connor might have mentioned." Maya started down the maintenance ladder, moving fast, while Titan bounded down the fire escape, like he'd been training for this his whole life. "Question is whether we can move faster." They hit street level and found Chief Patterson's security SUV still running, keys in the ignition, because apparently nobody in this operation had time for proper vehicle security protocols. Rachel took the wheel again, and they were moving before Maya fully closed her door. Her radio crackled with Cole's voice, strained and fighting through interference. "Maya, courthouse is clear, but we've got casualties. Where are you?" "Mercy General. Connor gave us the password, but he's critical. Hospital's under attack.
We're heading to First National Bank to secure the physical evidence. Negative. I'm getting reports of federal vehicles converging on that location. Too hot. Find somewhere to lay low and... Static swallowed the rest as Rachel took a corner hard enough to make the tires scream. Maya switched frequencies and heard chaos on every channel. Police responding to multiple incidents, federal agents calling for backup, and underneath it all, a voice she recognized as Vance, giving orders with the calm of someone who'd planned for this contingency. All units converge on First National. Evidence must be secured or destroyed. No witnesses. I repeat, no witnesses. Maya met Rachel's eyes. She's not even trying to hide it anymore. Because she knows this is endgame. Either the evidence goes public and she loses everything, or she buries it along with everyone who knows it exists. Rachel's jaw set hard. We're not the only ones she's trying to kill tonight. There'll be others. Witnesses, informants, anyone who could testify. The bank appeared ahead, 3 stories of granite and glass trying to look trustworthy while housing secrets in underground vaults. The street was empty, but Maya's instincts screamed trap. The kind of quiet that came right before violence.
"Drive past," Maya said. "Circle the block. I need to see what we're walking into." Rachel made the block, and Maya counted vehicles, windows, sightlines, everything that could hide a shooter or an ambush. She saw 2 unmarked sedans parked across the street, engines off, but windows tinted dark enough to hide occupants. Saw a panel van that didn't belong in a financial district at midnight. Saw movement on a rooftop that might have been wind, but probably wasn't. "They're already here," Rachel said. "Yeah." Maya checked her Sig Sauer and did math that said she had 9 rounds against an unknown number of hostiles with better positioning and probably better equipment. "We need a distraction, something big enough to pull their attention while we get inside." Rachel's phone buzzed, and she glanced at the screen. Then her face went white. "It's a news alert. The files you uploaded. They're going live on major networks in 30 minutes. Every document, every recording, everything." 30 minutes? Delayed release. Connor must have programmed it that way. Give us time to secure the physical evidence before the media storm hit. Rachel's hands were shaking on the wheel. "Maya, if we don't get that evidence in the next half hour, all we've got is digital files that Vance's lawyers will spend the next decade arguing are fabricated or inadmissible. The physical evidence is the only thing that makes it real." Maya's mind raced through options and discarded most of them, because most of them ended with her dead and Rachel dead and the evidence destroyed. Then she looked at Titan in the back seat and made a choice that felt like every other impossible choice she'd made tonight. "Pull into that parking garage 2 blocks down. We're going in through the service entrance." "They'll have that covered too." "I'm counting on it." Maya pulled out her phone and called a number she'd memorized years ago and never thought she'd use again. It rang twice before a gruff voice answered. "This better be life or death, Reeves." "It is, Gunny. I need a favor." Gunnery Sergeant Tom Briggs had been Maya's training instructor at Coronado. The man who'd taught her that impossible was just a word people used when they hadn't figured out the solution yet. He'd retired to Sacramento 3 years ago, and Maya had kept his number for emergencies. This qualified. "Talk fast," Briggs said. "I need someone to make a lot of noise at First National Bank in downtown Sacramento in the next 10 minutes. Fire alarm, car accident, something that draws police and civilians and makes it hard for people with guns to operate quietly." Silence on the other end. Then Briggs laughed, low and rough. "You in the shit again, kid?" Neck deep. "Yeah, I can do noise. How much noise we talking?" "Enough that federal agents trying to kill me think twice about pulling triggers with witnesses around." Another pause. "Federal agents. The bad kind. I didn't know there was a good kind." Briggs was already moving. She could hear it in his breathing. "Give me 12 minutes, and Reeves, you live through this. You buy me a beer and explain what the hell you got yourself into." "Deal."
Maya ended the call and looked at Rachel. We've got 12 minutes to get positioned. After that, chaos. We use it to get inside, get to the vault, grab the evidence, and get out before Vance's people figure out what happened. Rachel pulled into the parking garage and killed the engine. And if they catch us in the vault? Then we make sure the evidence gets out anyway, even if we don't. Maya checked her watch. Connor said box 447. You got the key? Rachel held up a small brass key that looked like it should open a gym locker, not the future of American justice. Everything's on this. If we lose it, we don't lose it. Maya opened her door, and Titan jumped out beside her, alert and ready.
Stay close, stay quiet, and when Gunny makes his noise, we move fast. They entered the bank through a service entrance that Rachel opened with a security override code she'd gotten from someone Maya didn't ask about. The interior was dark, except for emergency lighting that painted everything in shades of institutional green. Maya moved through it like water, each step deliberate, each corner cleared before she committed to the turn. The vault access was through a heavy steel door that should have been locked, but stood slightly ajar. Maya's instincts screamed trap, but Rachel was already moving forward, driven by something beyond caution, beyond fear. Some need to see this through that had kept her alive for 3 months in hiding. "Wait," Maya whispered, but Rachel pushed the door open and stepped through. The vault room beyond was maybe 30 feet square, walls lined with safety deposit boxes from floor to ceiling, and standing in front of box 447 was a man in a dark suit, with silver at his temples and eyes that looked like they'd made peace with necessary evil a long time ago. Senator James Morrison smiled like he was greeting constituents at a campaign stop. "Ms. Kim, Ms. Reeves, I was hoping we could talk before this goes any further." Rachel's hand moved toward her Glock, but Morrison raised his empty palms in a gesture of peace that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm unarmed, alone, just here to have a conversation about what happens next." He glanced at box 447. "That evidence you're after? It exists. All of it. Drugs, weapons, financial records proving exactly what Connor and Rachel have been saying for months." He paused. "It also proves my involvement. Payments, communications, the whole infrastructure of protection I provided to keep Vance's operation running." Maya kept her SIG trained on his center mass. "So why are you here instead of running?" "Because running implies guilt, and guilt is a narrative I can't afford." Morrison's smile never wavered. "Here's what I'm offering. You take that evidence, you go public, you destroy Vance and her 23 agents. Full prosecutions, maximum sentences, complete exposure of the ghost auction system. You get justice for Rachel, vindication for Connor, everything you fought for tonight. In exchange for what? In exchange for redacting the documents that tie me to the operation. Leave my name out of it. Let Vance be the monster, and let me be the senator who helped bring her down." Morrison took a step closer. "I'll testify. I'll provide congressional oversight. I'll make sure this never happens again. But I need to survive politically to do that. You burn me. You get revenge. But you lose the institutional power to prevent the next Vance from building the next conspiracy." Rachel's voice came out like broken glass. "You're asking us to cover for you. To let you walk away from 4 years of blood money while good people died trying to expose you. I'm asking you to be practical. Justice isn't always clean. Sometimes it's about choosing which battles you can win." Morrison's eyes found Maya. "You're military. You understand mission objectives and acceptable losses. Sacrifice me, and you get headlines for a month. Then everything gets buried in partisan politics and conspiracy theories. Keep me alive, and I can use my position to implement real oversight.
Real reform. Real change. Maya felt Titan press against her leg, and she thought about Connor, bleeding on an operating table. About Rachel spending 3 months dead to the world. About the 19 people serving prison time for crimes Vance's evidence destruction had made unsolvable. She thought about acceptable losses and necessary evil, and all the ways power protected itself by making corruption look like pragmatism. "No," she said. Morrison's smile finally faded. "You're making a mistake." "Not the first time today." Maya gestured with the cig. "Step away from the box. Rachel, get the evidence." Morrison didn't move. "You can't win this. Even if you get the evidence out, even if it goes public, I have resources you can't imagine. Lawyers, media contacts, political allies who will spend years drowning this in litigation and spin. By the time it's over, the truth will be so muddy, nobody will remember what they were supposed to be angry about." Outside, a massive crash echoed through the building, followed by a fire alarm screaming to life. Gunny's distraction, right on schedule. Maya heard shouting from the street, sirens approaching, the sound of chaos spreading like the noise it was designed to be. "Rachel, now!" Rachel moved to box 447 and inserted her key. The biometric scanner activated, and she held Connor's phone with the retinal scan data, then spoke clearly into the microphone. "Connor James Walsh, badge 729-44-8821. Authorization Delta-9-Sierra-8-3-Romeo-5-2-Alpha-Kilo." The box unlocked with a soft click that sounded like freedom. Inside were evidence bags stacked tight, each one labeled and cataloged, with the kind of meticulous documentation Rachel had built her career on. Drugs that should have been destroyed, weapons that should have been melted down, hard drives containing financial transactions that proved every word Connor had whispered on that frozen cliff. Rachel grabbed the bags with shaking hands and started loading them into a duffel she'd brought. Morrison watched with the expression of a man watching his empire collapse in real time. "This won't end the way you think," he said quietly. "Truth doesn't always win. Sometimes it just makes more people angry." Maya kept the cig steady. "Maybe, but at least they'll know who to be angry at." The vault door burst open, and Vance appeared with 4 agents behind her, weapons drawn. Her face had lost all pretense of professional calm, replaced by the raw fury of someone who'd built something magnificent and terrible, and was watching it burn. "Put down the evidence," Vance said. "Last chance." Rachel held the duffel against her chest, like it was worth dying for. Because it was. "No." Vance's finger moved to the trigger, and Maya knew she had maybe a second to decide whether protecting evidence or protecting Rachel mattered more. Whether dying for the truth was better than living with letting it be buried. Then Titan moved. The German shepherd launched himself at the nearest agent with the kind of speed that made physics look negotiable. 70 pounds of trained loyalty hit the man square in the chest, and they went down together in a tangle of snarls and screaming. The other agents swung their weapons toward the dog, and Maya fired twice, center mass, dropping one and spinning another into cover. Rachel ran for a second exit Maya hadn't seen, a service corridor behind the vault boxes. Maya followed while Vance's gunfire chased them, and Titan held the line with teeth and courage and the absolute refusal to let his partner fight alone. "Titan, break! Heal!" Maya shouted, and the shepherd disengaged and bounded after them while bullets sparked off steel behind him. They hit a stairwell and climbed 3 steps at a time while the building shook with sirens and alarms and the sound of law enforcement converging from every direction. Rachel's breathing came ragged, but she didn't slow, didn't drop the duffel, just kept moving with the determination of someone who'd been waiting 3 months for this moment. The roof access burst open under Maya's shoulder,
and cold night air hit them like a blessing. They were 4 stories up, with nowhere to go. But Maya saw Gunny's promised chaos spread below. Fire trucks, police cruisers, news vans already arriving, because bad news traveled fast, and this was about to be the worst news Vance could imagine. Rachel pulled out her phone and made a call. "Director Cole, we have the evidence, physical evidence from box 447. Everything Connor promised. We're on the roof of First National Bank, with Vance's people right behind us." Cole's voice came back clipped and tactical. "Hold position. I've got federal marshals en route. 2 minutes." "We don't have 2 minutes." The roof door exploded open, and Vance appeared, alone now, her agents either down or held back by the chaos below. She held her weapon, but didn't raise it, just stood there, looking at Rachel, with an expression that might have been respect, or might have been hatred, or might have been the terrible recognition that she'd lost. "It's over, Elizabeth," Rachel said. "Everything you built, everything you protected. It's done." Vance's laugh came out harsh and empty. "You think this is over? You think exposing me fixes anything? There'll be another me next year, another operation. Another way for people with badges to make money off the justice system they're supposed to protect." She shook her head. "I was just better at it than most." "That's why we had to stop you," Maya said. "Because if we don't draw the line somewhere, there is no line." Helicopters appeared overhead, searchlights cutting through the darkness. Federal marshals rappelled to the roof with weapons ready, and within seconds, Vance was on the ground, hands cuffed behind her back, reading her rights by someone who probably used to respect her. Rachel sank to her knees, still clutching the duffel, and started crying, the way people cry when they've been holding everything in for so long that letting it out feels like dying and being born at the same time. Maya sat beside her and put an arm around her shoulders while Titan pressed against them both. Below, news cameras were already broadcasting live footage of Deputy Director Elizabeth Vance being led away in handcuffs. Within the hour, the uploaded files would hit every major network. Rachel's testimony would be recorded by federal prosecutors, and the physical evidence would begin its journey through the legal system that would take years, but would eventually send 23 corrupt agents to federal prison. Senator Morrison would resign the next morning, citing health reasons, though everyone would know the real reason when his name appeared in the documents. 12 of the 19 wrongful convictions would be overturned within 6 months. The other 7 would take longer, buried in legal complexity. But Rachel would fight for every single one, because that's what people did when they decided the truth mattered more than convenience. Connor Walsh would survive his surgery and spend 3 months in recovery before returning to active duty with a commendation for integrity and a permanent limb that reminded him every day that doing the right thing cost something, but cost less than living with having not done it. He and Rachel would remain partners, the kind of bond that came from dying for each other and choosing to keep living instead. And Maya would go back to civilian life, changed by a night that started with a dog's alert and ended with understanding that courage wasn't about being unafraid. It was about being terrified and moving forward anyway. About following signals in the wind, even when you didn't know where they led. About deciding that some things were worth bleeding for, even if you weren't sure you'd survive the bleeding. 3 weeks later, she stood in Director Cole's office while he offered her a badge and a position in the FBI's new Integrity Division, created specifically to prevent another Vance from building another empire in the shadows. Maya held the badge and felt its weight, the responsibility it represented, the choice it demanded. "I'm honored," she said, "but I can't." Cole raised an eyebrow. "Can't or won't?" "Won't. Because I've seen what happens when good people trust institutions to stay good without anyone watching.
You need someone outside the system, someone who doesn't answer to chain of command or political pressure, someone who can follow the truth wherever it leads, without worrying about career implications. She handed the badge back. That's not who I'd be if I took this. That's who I need to stay being if I'm going to do any good. Cole smiled like he'd expected that answer. Then do me a favor. Keep watching. Keep listening. And when you find something that needs attention, bring it to people who still remember why they put the badge on in the first place. I can do that. Maya walked out of the building with Titan at her side and felt the winter sun on her face and thought about Rachel Kim alive, Connor Walsh healing, and a conspiracy exposed because one dog caught a scent in the wind and one woman decided to follow it. The truth didn't always win, and justice wasn't always served. And sometimes the bad guys walked away with lighter sentences than they deserved. But sometimes, when enough people decided they gave a damn, when enough voices refused to be silenced, when enough ordinary courage stacked up into something extraordinary, the scales tipped just enough to matter. And that was how change happened, how corruption fell, how the light found its way into dark places. Not through grand gestures or perfect heroes, but through people who saw something wrong and refused to look away, who heard someone crying for help and answered even when answering was dangerous, who understood that doing nothing was its own kind of evil and chose action instead. Maya looked down at Titan and scratched behind his ears. "Good boy," she said. "We did good." The shepherd looked up at her with eyes that held no doubt, no second guessing, just the absolute certainty that they'd done what needed doing, and that was enough. And maybe it was.